If you bought a PSVR 2, you know the struggle. A few amazing games, a lot of average ports, and a constant feeling of what's next. Well, this year isn't all disappointment. I've sifted through the noise to find the 15 best new games of 2025 for PSVR 2, and if they're actually worth your time and money. What's up, guys? It's Broz, and here we go. HITMAN World of Assassination VR, released on March 27th, is considered by many to be the definitive way to play this game. This package includes the entire trilogy from the first 3 installments of the HITMAN series, offering an incredible amount of content and becoming one of the most value-packed VR titles on the market. The critics on Metacritic gave it a generally favorable score, with many calling it a must-have for PSVR 2 owners. The game's core mechanics feel entirely new. You now physically eject magazines and slap in a new one yourself, a tactile action that makes every shot feel more real. Hand-to-hand combat and close-quarter assassinations are no longer just animations. They feel incredibly intimate, as many reviewers have noted. The ability to dual-wield pistols is a new exclusive feature for the VR version, which allows for some creative ways to tackle missions. Since it's a hybrid game, some flat-screen design choices remain. Vaulting over obstacles and blending in with a crowd still use button presses, which can be a bit jarring. But these small issues fade when you're standing in a bustling Parisian fashion show, or in the world's tallest skyscraper during a luxurious opening party, completely immersed in the world of Agent 47 and his assassination contracts. Fans of classic stealth games have been waiting for a new Thief for over a decade. Now the long-awaited return is here, but with a catch. Thief VR Legacy of Shadow is a VR exclusive. This decision sparked a huge debate, with many flat gamers feeling left out, calling it a slap in the face that a new entry is locked behind a VR headset. The game's producer stated that VR is a natural fit for an immersive sim like Thief. The game is built from the ground up for VR, letting you physically crouch in the shadows and hide behind objects. You use your hands for tactile actions like lockpicking, extinguishing light sources, and scaling walls with rope arrows. These actions are enhanced by the PSVR 2's sense controllers and haptic feedback, making every move feel more real. The title is designed as both a continuation of the original series and a new entry point, with its story chronologically placed between the original trilogy and the 2014 reboot. The VR-exclusive nature of the game created controversy, but the developers believe that more players will be interested if they use an established brand name for a VR game. In official releases and a trailer unveiled more than 2 months ago, it was stated that the game would be released later this year. The original Wanderer was a VR adventure, but the new version, the Fragments of Fate, is a complete rebuild for PSVR 2. The developers describe it as the game they wanted to make from the start, but couldn't due to technical limitations. This version adds 3 new levels and expands the original locations, making the scope much larger. The game now includes a brand new physics system that lets you swim, climb, and swing on zip lines. It even features full-body avatars that respond to your movements, giving a greater sense of presence. However, the launch was not perfect. The game was released with annoying bugs and the combat was considered generally bad, with poor AI. Developers Mighty Eyes have been quick and diligent in releasing patches to fix these issues. The watch companion Samuel has also been overhauled with a new UI and a feature called the Echo Diviner, which helps locate lost items. Players have questioned why some of these quality-of-life upgrades weren't in the game from the beginning, and that it's one of the best VR games out there. But numerous bugs spoil the experience, even though the developers have already fixed many of them. From Fireproof Games, the creators of the hit series The Room, comes Ghost Town, a game that's already out on other VR platforms and will be available soon on PSVR 2. This is a supernatural detective story that focuses on suspense and mystery, not jump scares. You are a medium who helps spirits move on, exploring London in the 1980s. The game avoids the pitfalls of VR combat and instead puts all its effort into its strengths, puzzles, and narrative. Core gameplay revolves around tactile puzzles with intricate machinery. You physically pull levers, turn dials, and even use magic to solve elaborate riddles. Its story is compelling and the characters are described as rich and well-articulated. For puzzle veterans, the riddles might feel a bit easy, as they are more about observation than challenge, but this helps the narrative flow smoothly. The game's 1980s setting includes period-specific details and the characters are brought to life with full motion capture. The title has been widely praised as one of the most polished VR experiences on the market, with excellent visuals and solid performance. With overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam and Metacritic, it even won the Best Game Award at the Raindance Immersive Festival. Roboquest has already made a name for itself as a fast-paced roguelite shooter with an overwhelmingly positive rating on Steam. Now the VR version is set to launch this fall on PSVR2. It's important to note that Roboquest VR is a completely separate product, built from the ground up for virtual reality, which is exactly the kind of high-energy game that PSVR2 needs. The VR version includes features like weapon holsters on your body and full 6 degrees of freedom, which should make the chaotic, fast-paced action feel even more intense and intuitive. The original game is a viral hit for its solid roguelite mechanics, and bringing those to VR with proper motion controls is a perfect fit. Roboquest VR will also have crossplay with flat-screen players, which is a huge deal. It opens up a much larger player base and makes it easier to find a match, something many VR-only titles struggle with. The release is scheduled for fall 2025 on PSVR 2, but you can add it to your wishlist on the PlayStation Store now. Arken Age was released on January 16th and quickly made a name for itself on PSVR 2. Developed by a small team of just 4 people, the game holds a Metacritic score of 84 with critics and players on Steam praising its polished and immersive gameplay. It's a great example of a VR game that gets all the fundamental elements right, from physics-based combat to a well-designed traversal system. The PSVR 2 version offers 2 performance modes, a quality mode with a higher resolution at 60 frames per second and a performance mode that hits a native 90 FPS. This kind of optimization guarantees a smooth and crisp experience from the start. Combat is a major highlight, built around a physics system that lets you interact with enemies in satisfying ways, like sweeping their legs with your sword. The game also features a full-body inverse kinematics system, which is considered one of the best implementations in VR, making your character's movements feel natural and immersive without getting in the way. With a campaign said to be over 15 hours long, Arken Age provides a substantial adventure. Into Black, a VR sci-fi adventure, is getting a remaster for PSVR 2, and it's a big step up from the original. The game throws you into a vast alien world where you explore, gather resources, and fight your way through a dangerous landscape. It's praised for its smooth movement mechanics and polished gunplay, which make the core gameplay feel intuitive and satisfying. Remastered environments feature enhanced water, along with improved flora, fauna, and textures. Developers also optimize performance for 90 Hz on PS5 and 120 Hz on PS5 Pro, and implemented support for the headset's unique haptic feedback and the controller's adaptive triggers, making it the best-looking and most immersive version of the game yet. Stylized graphics and good lighting effects make the world stand out. Firing a flare into a dark cavern and watching it illuminate the alien environment is very effective. You get to explore varied biomes including magma chambers, ancient ruins, and underwater caverns. The game struggles to maintain its initial promise, but some players have reported accumulating technical issues, like creatures glitching out and objects floating in the air. Overall, Into Black has very positive reviews on the MetaQuest platform, so its release on PSVR 2 could be a great time-tested launch, coming on August 28th. UNDERDOGS is a mech brawler that's all about brutal, close-quarters combat inside a sci-fi fighting arena. This title has been highly praised for its incredibly polished and fun gameplay loop. Reviewers have called the combat punchy and genuinely jaw-dropping. The roguelite elements keep things fresh on every run, and the ability to grab enemies out of the air and slam them into the ground is incredibly fun. Deep customization options let you build the perfect mech from hundreds of unique parts. The PSVR 2 version in particular looks sharp, taking advantage of the PS5's power to deliver great visuals with crisp detail and a smooth frame rate. However, the game has been criticized for not fully utilizing the headset's unique features. Reviewers noted a lack of headset rumble and adaptive triggers. The PSVR 2 port may be lacking some of the expected features, but its core gameplay is strong enough to outweigh any missing ones. The fast-paced fights, coupled with a great art style and solid visuals, make UNDERDOGS a very engaging experience. The Midnight Walk is a game that immediately grabs your attention with its art style. Every character and environment was first sculpted from real clay and then animated using a stop-motion technique. It creates a hauntingly beautiful world that is both grotesque and mesmerizingly detailed. Gameplay itself is a walking simulator with some light stealth sections. The title has received very positive reviews on Steam and a solid 77 score on Metacritic. But some players have reported terrible bugs and a lack of VR interactions. For instance, opening doors still requires a simple button press. It also features a jarring mix of animation styles that some have called an unintended bug. However, the game uses a standout PSVR2 feature, eye tracking. There's a blinking mechanic where you physically close your eyes to enter a meditative state and rely on 3D audio cues to find hidden objects or avoid monsters. This is an incredibly immersive and effective mechanic that proves you can create a compelling experience with just one or two smart VR features. The story is told through multiple unnamed narrators and relies on art and a melancholic soundtrack to create a powerful sense of nostalgia. From indie studio Castello Inc., Of Lies and Rain enters early access on September 10th for PC VR and MetaQuest. Developers have promised a PSVR2 port later, which we're hoping for by the end of the year, but also keeping an eye on 2026. Of Lies and Rain is a VR-exclusive first-person shooter set in a dark, post-apocalyptic world. The game's premise is unique. You have abilities that let you travel between the real and digital realms to save humanity from a rogue AI named ADE. Even so, the game has already generated controversy, which some players found disappointing. While the developers described the game as having amazing graphics, players who tried the demo quickly disputed that claim. They called the visuals unapologetically bad, and a stark contrast to other PSVR2 titles that are already out. The development team is very small, and the studio plans to use this early access launch to gather player feedback and address bugs and performance issues before the full release. So for now, this is a title to keep an eye on. On the surface, Pirates VR Jolly Roger looks like the pirate adventure VR has been waiting for. The art style is quite decent, especially when you are on the sunny beaches and looking at the Caribbean island. The climbing and exploration mechanics feel solid, and the world is full of ancient ruins and lush environments. However, the game's potential falls flat once you move away from the beaches. The visuals inside the caves are described as dull and lifeless, a stark contrast to the beautiful overworld. The gameplay is also a letdown. Combat is basic and lacks any real weight, and the puzzles are too simple. Swimming is also limited to analog controls instead of physical arm movements, which many have found frustrating. The game's parrot sidekick is another point of discontent. It is supposed to be a guide, but it quickly becomes an annoying backseat gamer that constantly gives hints and cannot be muted. The voice acting is also a bit flat, which takes away from the overall feel. Another point that doesn't work in the game's favor is its very short length. It can be completed in just 4 hours. On the other hand, the game also has positive aspects. Players highlight its fun and engaging atmosphere, as well as interesting locations with varied content. Overall, Pirates VR Jolly Roger can be recommended for 1 or 2 evenings, but you shouldn't have overly high expectations. Released on June 12th, Zombie Army VR is a zombie shooter that faithfully brings the franchise's arcade-style action to VR. The PSVR2 version excels with its new mechanics, particularly the full manual reloading and the effective use of adaptive triggers that make every shot feel impactful. Overall, the game has a fun vibe, but if you decide to jump into some zombie slaying, it's important to know about the downsides, and there are quite a few. The game has received mixed reviews, with only 43% positive on Steam, and critics note that while it is enjoyable, it still feels a little too tied to its flat-screen roots. While the gunplay is more or less solid, the melee combat is a definite weak point, feeling devoid of impactful sensation. The game's menu system is also a bit clunky. It's a flat pop-up that can pull you out of the immersion, which is a common issue with hybrid VR games. A frustrating detail is the lack of the series' iconic X-ray kill cams in co-op mode. Although they're still in the single-player campaign, you'll have to go it alone if you want to see those gruesome shots. Boss fights were also a letdown, often feeling like samey summoner types that are more like bullet sponges. Firmament comes from the creators of the classic puzzle games Myst and Riven. It has a beautiful, stylized art design and a world filled with intricate, logical puzzles. Players use a unique tool called the Adjunct to solve environmental riddles and progress through a non-linear steampunk world. The reality of its launch on PSVR2 was a major disappointment for many. The game is considered a very messy port that suffers from unstable frame rates even on the more powerful PS5 Pro. Reviewers have described it as a neglected port and a one to avoid until a patch is released. The technical issues not only ruin the immersion but can also lead to motion sickness. The studio has faced some troubles lately, and some speculate this port was rushed. It's a shame because the game's core ideas and art style have a lot of potential. But players who were able to look past the technical issues were still captivated by the ingenious puzzles and the rich, stylized world. Smash Drums is not only a fantastic rhythm game, but it's also a technical showpiece for the PSVR2 hardware. The game runs at a native 120 frames per second on both the PS5 and PS5 Pro, thanks to foveated rendering, creating an incredibly smooth drumming experience. It effectively uses the adaptive triggers on the Sense controllers to provide satisfying tactile feedback when you hit your drums or navigate the menus. Upgraded visuals with enhanced lighting and shadows also look stunning and pull you further into the game's vibrant, energetic environments. The game maintains consistent audio levels regardless of how well you play, and gives subtle cues when you miss a note. It also includes an option to add strength requirements to notes for an extra challenge. There is one major downside that might disappoint some players. The multiplayer mode is missing from the PSVR2 version. While this is a significant loss, the single-player experience is so refined that it still offers plenty of replay value, especially for drumming fans. For those who enjoy puzzle and rhythm games, the classic musical block dropper Lumines is officially getting a new entry, and it's coming to PSVR2 this autumn. This is a big announcement for a series that's been dormant for over a decade, with the last new game coming out all the way back in 2012. The major reveal is that Lumines Arise is getting the Tetris Effect treatment, a phrase that immediately sets high expectations. Tetris Effect used VR to turn a classic puzzle game into a psychedelic, immersive experience where the visuals and music react dynamically to your every move. It was a masterpiece, and now Lumines, with its strong focus on music and visuals, is set to follow in its footsteps. This could be the perfect game to show off the PSVR2's OLED screen and 3D audio. You can expect the game's iconic beats and music to pulsate all around you, with vibrant, abstract visuals swirling in your peripheral vision. And now for a bonus. Hidden Memories: The Garden in Between is a VR reimagining of the award-winning 2018 puzzle game. It's a quiet, emotional story about two friends reliving their shared memories through a series of surreal, diorama-like islands. The storytelling is done without dialogue, relying entirely on art, animation, and a melancholic soundtrack to create a powerful sense of nostalgia. The core mechanic of the original game was manipulating time. In VR, this is taken a step further. You can now physically grab the entire diorama and rotate it like a snow globe, giving you a new perspective on the world and making the puzzles feel more tactile. The addition of new levels also makes this feel more like a true rediscovery for fans of the original. The game runs at a solid 90 to 120 FPS with no reprojection, which is excellent for a VR title. While the gameplay is unhurried and the puzzles aren't overly challenging, the joy of this game lies in its atmosphere and art. Thanks for sticking around to the end. Hit the like button and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. And if this list of PSVR2 games didn't convince you, then check out these two videos on new PS5 racing games and new exclusives in 25 and 26. See you next time.